Starship Flight 12 is about to decide everything. Version 3, the bigger, bolder beast Elon's staking everything on, takes the stage. Success rockets SpaceX toward Mars, the Moon, and history. Failure, the whole dream could stall out. Across the US, NASA is bleeding time. Artemis 2 delayed again, another month lost to SLS headaches, helium issues, and a pad that won't move. Two roads to the moon. One brutal moment of truth. SpaceX stays quiet on the real progress. NASA won't admit the depths of the cracks. Let's pull back the curtain on what's really at stake before one path gets left behind. My name is Felix. Welcome to What About It? Let's dive right in. Starship updates. I could have called this episode a story of delays and success. On one side, as you'll learn in the second half of this video, some are struggling very much. On the other side, we have Starbase. And there's been a lot going on at Starbase lately. Remember that one? SpaceX is in full swing for Flight 12 preparations. There are 3 boxes that need to be ticked off for it to happen. Number 1 is Booster 19. It's currently in Mega Bay 1 after performing extensive cryotests at Massey's. And it is in there for 3 reasons. Number 1 is to check if it survived these tests intact. Number 2 is to install grid fins. Number 3 is to install 33 Raptor 3 engines under it to be able to do the next needed test. A 6-second static fire test at Pad 2 that we're all waiting for right now. This test will show for the first time and in a real-world scenario how well Raptor 3 performs when installed on a rocket stage rather than a test stand. Recently, NSF's cameras have picked up more and more Raptor 3 engines rolling around at the McGregor test site. We're up to number 106 and have seen several vacuum Raptors as well. Those can easily be distinguished from sea-level engines by the much larger engine bell they carry. And this is done for efficiency reasons. You want your exhaust gases to be guided by a bell until they are as close to 100% expansion rate as possible. And since there is almost no pressure in low Earth orbit, the bell is larger to raise efficiency. These engines are essential for Starship Flight 12. SpaceX has been working on refining the design for a while now, and it is about time they are installed. I heard that this installation process has already begun, but there is no credible source confirming it yet. But it is safe to say that we are very close. The next item on the list of showstoppers is the Massey test stand. I reported on the last episode that sources tell me this contraption is to be turned into a one-stop shop for Starship upper stage testing. The recent addition of flap testing equipment is one indicator that this is the way to go. The big question is why SpaceX would want to test this now when they never did before. Looking at previous launches and re-entries shows one problem with the flaps over everything else. The heat shield problems in the hinge and gap areas. Plasma leaked through, ate tiles, and caused large chunks of the flaps to disintegrate. Maybe SpaceX has found that the flaps bent as well and now they want to test improvements on Ship 39 before the flight? It is hard to say why, but that's what we can look forward to. The stand itself is still in the process of being built, but it looks like they are now almost finished with it. Ship 39.1, directly connected to the new V3 Starship generation, is still testing at Massey's as well. As can be seen on Avid Space's camera, it performed test number 9 on February 16th. No new tests since then? You tell me if that's a good sign. Ship 39 itself is still waiting in Mega Bay 2, and right next to it, Ship 40 is taking shape more and more. The aft section has been stacked by 2 more segments on the 17th and the 21st. This leaves only 2 segments to be stacked. This is an excellent sign of how long we'll have to wait for Flight 13, for which Ship 40 is slated right now if nothing unforeseen happens. Definitely not as long as we had to wait for Flight 12. The last box to be checked is Pad 2. We've recently seen a hopefully full power deluge test and lots of detonation suppression system tests. So the water system is tested to its fullest now. The next very important commodity for a successful static fire and after that a launch, of course, is fuel and oxidizer. Right after the presumably full deluge test, SpaceX tested both quick disconnect systems. It is hard to see in the footage, but take a look at this. You can see the forward part of the ship quick disconnect extend and then move back again. That is the first time we've seen this brand new ship quick disconnect arm do that. And on the same day, we saw yet another test of the booster quick disconnect system, with both quick disconnects extending out once more. And then on the 21st as well, the deluge tests continued. This time specifically the system inside the trench. You can see the huge water spout on the side in our footage. It is caused by overflow vents. When the tanks are rapidly pressurized and the water is forced out at high rates, excess pressure, or displaced air and water, can vent forcefully upward through dedicated outlets or risers near the tanks. Almost looks like a geyser. All these pad tests are very likely final preparation work for the booster static fire and later Flight 12. If you want to see how SpaceX is doing at Starbase from the air just like Jordan does, visit redlineheli.com/Felix. $25 off for anyone using the link. The Redline helicopter team will show you the same Starbase views our photographer gets on his Starbase flights. It's incredible stuff. This is all excellent news from Starbase, but it also leaves us wondering when we can expect more action at the launch site. I see your comments all the time. Let's do another estimate. When can we expect a static fire and the launch itself if everything goes as planned? The entirety of official information since January 26th was this post from Elon Musk. Starship launch in 6 weeks. He likely referred to what's called an internal goal. It is a set date that everyone works toward. Adding exactly 6 weeks or 42 days to January 26th lands on Monday, March 9th, 2026. That's in a little more than 2 weeks. Realistic? Sadly not. But Musk keeps saying March. So the likelihood of them still internally tracking next month as the target is very high. Let's say SpaceX makes quick progress with both the Booster 19 static fire and the Ship 39 cryo testing. They might be able to finish this in the next 2 weeks. But then we're also looking at Ship 39 engine installation and a static fire for the upper stage of the Flight 12 full stack. That adds another week at least. So at the absolute best, we are right now looking at a launch in roughly 4 weeks. That would be right on my birthday, and I'd totally be fine with that. Realistically though, achieving March will be hard. There is still a chance, but only if SpaceX has everything figured out. What comes after Flight 12 and in the future of Starbase can be seen at the production site. The Gigabay has just started building out level 4. Yep, the construction is going up even higher. Teams have also started pouring concrete on the lower levels as well. These crews never stop working. There's 24/7 progress at Starbase. This building is what's supposed to turn this X-post into reality. Over 10,000 satellites delivered in 1 year would mean we'd effectively almost double the number of active satellites in space in 12 months' time. It is a massive and slightly scary project that is supposed to move AI computing into space. Now, I know this isn't directly about rockets, but it has a lot to do with it, and it might be the next big thing in spaceflight. I've been thinking about the advent of AI more and more in recent months, and I am sure I'm not alone with it. An AI film created with VO3 just won $1 million at the 1 Billion Followers Summit. A 19-year-old now runs an AI automated agency earning $100,000 a month. Forbes reports that employees using AI can earn up to 40% more. The early adopter phase is over. Will you watch this shift or build leverage from it? This video is sponsored by Outskill, an AI-focused education platform. This weekend, they're hosting a live 2-day AI mastermind, 16 hours total, and you can join free for the next 48 hours. In those sessions, you'll learn how to build AI agents that plan, write, and execute tasks, automate workflows that run in the background, connect tools like Sheets, Notion, CRMs, and email into real systems, and turn those systems into income opportunities. If you attend both days, you'll unlock bonuses, including the AI Prompt Bible, the AI Profit Roadmap, your personalized AI Toolkit Builder, plus access to the 2026 AI Survival Hack book when you register. 100% discount for the first 1,000 people. Outskill has already trained more than 10 million people across the globe and is rated 4.9 out of 5 on Trustpilot. You can find the link in the description and the pinned comment to join right now and join their WhatsApp community to stay updated. So here's my question for you for this episode. What are your thoughts on AI? Is this good? Is it bad? What do you think all this will lead to? Amazing abundance or Terminator? Let me know in the comments. Maybe we can start a discussion. Hey, if you're enjoying the journey we're on together, could you do me a huge favor? Hit the like button and subscribe. It is completely free and it means the world to the team and me. It helps more people find the channel, it helps us make better content for you, it's what keeps the episodes coming. And if you directly want to support what I'm building here, check out our Why Member Club on Patreon or right here on YouTube. Hit the join button and get all the access. Thank you for considering it, you rock! Jared Isaacman, the new NASA administrator, promised more transparency, and he's keeping his promise. NASA is dropping the truth bomb. Remember the 2 astronauts launched on what was supposed to be a routine test flight and then didn't come home for 9 months? The reason for this extended stay was that their brand new spacecraft began experiencing problems in orbit. And now, after a 1.5 year investigation, NASA says the mission wasn't just a test that ran long. It now officially counts as a high-severity mishap. Even though no one was injured, the astronauts barely made it home safely. Not even on the craft that took them to the ISS. So what went wrong, and why is NASA using such drastic words? For more than a decade, the agency has been trying to solve a very specific problem. Never again rely on just one way to send astronauts to space. After the space shuttle retired, the United States had to buy seats from Russia to reach the International Space Station. That was expensive, politically risky, and deeply uncomfortable for a country used to launching its own crews on its own rockets. The solution was the Commercial Crew Program, essentially a competition. 2 American companies would build independent spacecraft for crew transportation. 2 different designs, 2 different engineering cultures. If one had a problem, the other could keep flying. One of those spacecraft, Crew Dragon, built by SpaceX, began flying astronauts successfully in 2020. The other, Starliner, built by Boeing, took longer. Much longer. Now, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman has pulled this topic back into the light. As part of NASA's new transparent communication approach, he presented the latest findings in a publicly streamed press conference. And it was way more honest than what we're used to. To get a better picture of the whole situation, let's look back to June 2024. The much-delayed vehicle was finally ready for its first crewed test flight. 4 years after SpaceX. A mission designed to prove it could safely carry astronauts to the station and back. This was meant to be the final demonstration before regular operations. But instead, it became the mission that triggered a major investigation. On June 5, 2024, 2 veteran astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, rode the spacecraft into orbit for what should have been a short shakedown mission. The plan was simple: launch, dock with the station, spend about 1 to 2 weeks testing systems, come home. But as the spacecraft approached the station, engineers began to see something they did not expect. Reaction control thrusters, the small but critical engines used to maneuver in space, weren't behaving the way they should. Some shut down, others showed degraded performance. Engineers had to work in real time to understand what the vehicle was doing, with people on board. The spacecraft still managed to dock, but now there was a new question. If the propulsion system was acting unpredictably, could it be trusted to bring the crew home? Now this mission quietly turned into an on-orbit investigation. What was supposed to be a brief visit stretched into weeks and then months. Teams on the ground ran simulations. They studied telemetry. They fired test hardware on Earth to recreate what had happened in space. Meanwhile, the astronauts waited. And eventually, managers made a remarkable decision. They would bring the spacecraft home without its crew on board. Think about that for a second. The vehicle was considered safe enough to land remotely, but not yet safe enough to carry people. So the capsule returned to Earth empty in September 2024, touching down in New Mexico while its intended passengers remained aboard the station. Months later, those astronauts finally came home on a different spacecraft, ironically a Crew Dragon, the one vehicle that Starliner was to compete with. The test flight was over, but the real work was just beginning. In February 2025, an independent investigation team began digging into what had happened. Not just technically, but organizationally. Their findings, completed later that year, didn't point to a single catastrophic failure. Instead, they described something more complicated and even more concerning. A chain of smaller issues. Hardware weaknesses that only appeared under real flight conditions, gaps in qualification testing, and assumptions that systems would perform as expected. Decisions had been shaped by schedule pressure and program goals. It all led to communication and cultural breakdowns that allowed risk to accumulate. No single mistake doomed the mission. But together, they created conditions that investigators said were inconsistent with the safety standards required for human spaceflight. In this latest press conference, NASA called it a Type A mishap. Do you know what that is?
Today, we formally designate this event a Type A mishap to ensure lessons are fully captured for future missions.
In the agency's classification system, a Type A mishap is the most serious category. It's used when there is a high potential for loss of life, major damage, or mission failure, even if the worst outcome is avoided.
Programmatic advocacy exceeded reasonable bounds and placed the mission, the crew, and America's space program at risk in ways that were not fully understood at the time decisions were being contemplated.
That's what makes this case unusual. There was no explosion, no emergency escape, no one was hurt. But investigators concluded that the situation had crossed a threshold where the risk itself demanded accountability.
This created a culture of mistrust that can never happen again, and there will be leadership accountability.
Butch and Sunny could have lost their lives. This was a warning shot, one that put the severity of the incident on par with the catastrophic failures of the Space Shuttle Challenger and Columbia. Both Type A mishaps. One question is lingering. How could this all go so wrong?
It's decision-making and leadership that if left unchecked, could create a culture incompatible with human spaceflight.
After all, the entire purpose of the commercial crew strategy was resilience. 2 providers, 2 spacecraft, no single point of failure. The investigation found that the urgency to achieve that goal influenced decisions along the way, ultimately shaping how risks were evaluated and when problems were accepted rather than eliminated. It's a paradox. The drive to be first introduced new pressure into the system intended to make spaceflight safer. So, what about Starliner? Surprise! The spacecraft is not retired and the partnership isn't over. Yet. Engineers are still working through propulsion behavior, testing changes, and implementing recommendations from the investigation. Officials say future flights will only take place when the vehicle is ready, not when the schedules demand it. In human spaceflight, you don't just prove a spacecraft works, you prove it works even when nothing goes right. The Starliner test incident wasn't a dramatic launch failure, it was something quieter, a disaster that never happened, maybe out of sheer luck. In the end, the astronauts came home safely, albeit on a different spacecraft. The real winner here is NASA. Its rediscovered, transparent approach is a welcome breath of fresh air.
But to be clear, NASA will not fly another crew on Starliner until technical causes are understood and corrected, the propulsion system is fully qualified, and appropriate investigation recommendations are implemented. So this is just about doing the right thing.
Thank you, Jared and NASA, you rock! A culture of clear communication will go a long way toward both reassuring taxpayers that their hard-earned dollars are being put to good use and reassuring astronauts that due diligence is being completed and not pushed aside. Speaking of journeys, the biggest one on this year's calendar, without a doubt, is Artemis 2. And NASA's SLS moon rocket has been powerful, enormous, and stubbornly difficult to launch. On Wednesday, engineers performed one of the most important tests before the next Artemis mission can fly, for the second time. They filled the rocket with propellant, they ran the countdown, they put real crews through real procedures. This was a full-scale dress rehearsal aiming to prove the rocket is finally ready. Again. Before astronauts can ride this vehicle around the moon on Artemis 2, NASA has to answer one question. Can the rocket be fueled and launched safely and reliably? That sounds simple, but it's been one of the program's biggest technical obstacles. Liquid hydrogen, the rocket's main fuel, is incredibly efficient and incredibly hard to handle. It's so small at an atomic level that it leaks easily. It must be kept at incredibly cold temperatures, and small problems can stop a launch entirely. Earlier Artemis testing was repeatedly disrupted by hydrogen leaks, forcing engineers back to the drawing board. This rehearsal was meant to show those fixes actually worked. During Thursday's test, teams pumped more than 2.6 million liters of supercooled propellant into the rocket. A closeout crew practiced sealing the astronauts inside the spacecraft. Countdown controllers ran the final minutes of the launch sequence twice. Even the Artemis 2 astronauts observed parts of the simulation to rehearse their own roles. This is as close as you can get to a launch without lighting the engines. All eyes were fixed on the hydrogen system. It looked like measurements stayed within safe limits. The redesigned seals and connections reportedly performed as intended. That's a quiet result, but for NASA it could have been a huge confidence boost. Unfortunately, the rehearsal wasn't completely flawless. At one point, controllers inside the Launch Control Center lost ground communications. A situation no one wants during fueling operations. Teams quickly switched to backup systems while engineers tracked down the faulty equipment. This also happened during the first wet dress rehearsal as well. It seems that engineers are struggling to create a permanent fix for the communications problem. And it now looks like some problems do have direct consequences for a planned launch date. Technicians plan to use temporary platforms to access safety hardware and retest the rocket's flight termination system. With heavy winds incoming, the temporary platforms had to be removed. And on Saturday, NASA released information about a possible rollback to work on a helium flow problem in the rocket's interim cryogenic propulsion stage. The Artemis 2 astronauts had already entered quarantine in Houston. Normally, that's one of the clearest signals that a launch window is approaching fast. If we get a rollback, the quarantine will likely be interrupted again while a new launch day is considered. All looked like Artemis 2 moved one big step closer to becoming the first mission in more than 50 years to carry astronauts around the moon. It still will, but likely a bit later. Again. During the post-test conference, NASA's SLS launch director confirmed that the earliest possible launch date was still March 6th. But on the 21st, NASA changed its wording, saying that a rollback was likely, which would push a possible launch window into April. Going back to the moon is not an easy task. It requires the right talent, the right ideas, and a lot of courage to proceed with the plan. Even though it might not seem like it in a world of routine crewed flights to space, flying to the moon is a whole different story. And that's it for today. Smash that like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm, and this is how you can help us for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store, our brand new Raptor emblem design, and countless others are there for you to explore. Click the card or the US or worldwide link in the description. And if you want to know how SpaceX wants to colonize the moon, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode.